Well, hello everyone. This is Carrie Beck with How to Homeschool My Child and Raising Leaders Not Followers. And I am so honored to be with you today. I am so thankful for Michelle to invite me to share some of these ideas that I've been working with and I actually used with my own children when they were teens. So before I dive into that, because I'm sure most of you would like your kids to be able to think and to make some wise decisions. Before I dive into the nuts and bolts of this particular session, I do want to just introduce my family. Some of you know me, some of you don't. And I think it's sort of nice to know the proof is in the pudding because I am not talking about kids that are in their teens now. These are my kids. See if I can do this. Well, there they are with me, little bitty. But okay, so here are my kids. They are all grown and on their own, and obviously they even have some kids of their own. So this is Ashley. She is our oldest. She is married to Jesse, and they have Faith and Elizabeth right here. And this is, where is she? Gentry is right there. She's married to Andrew. They have Landry and baby Deacon, who's a lot bigger and crawling all around the place now. And then we have the baby of the family, the tallest, that is Hunter. I like to share a picture so that you sort of have an idea in your head when I start talking about that these are my own kids. These are ideas that I used in my own homeschool, and I continue to see the fruit of that as well today. And so they are ones that sort of exhibit that they actually use their brain and do some thinking skills, and they do make decisions well as well. So, what I want to do today is talk to you about 3 steps that will help you raise your kids to be able to think critically. And I'm a person of faith. And so I also wanted my kids to be able to think biblically as well. I believe it's important that when our kids are teenagers, that we start to let them go a little bit and they start to do some things on their own. And so I think it's important that they begin to have something called a personal growth plan. There are 3 steps to this personal growth plan. Let me just write the first word down so I'm not writing as I hold it up. The first one is to set aside time for learning. That learning is in the form of reading, or it could be maybe taking a lecture, watching a lecture. But for the most part, we are going to be reading. That is the first step. We are setting aside a time to learn. I think it's important that we structure your time, not the content. Oliver DeMille, who wrote a Thomas Jefferson Education, says, structure the time, not the content. In other words, we're going to study for 4 hours every morning, and you're going to make some decisions about what to study. And you might be going, oh my goodness, seriously, I'm going to let go and let my kids make decisions? Guess what? My oldest daughter, Ashley, did not finish Algebra 2. She got a college degree in 2 years, and then she went and got a teaching certificate here in Texas and taught at-risk kids. And so that is a very unique way to do it. But she never finished Algebra 2, much less trigonometry or calculus or any of those things. And so I think it's really important that we realize different kids are going to make different choices. Another thing, both Ashley and Gentry wanted to take an astronomy course. So in their high school, now how many high schools offer astronomy for science? But they were interested in that and they studied that. They took a class, they went out to the Skies Farm, did the whole 9 yards on astronomy. You see, I think it's important we set aside a time for learning because the opposite does not do anything. The opposite is that checklist mentality. Hey, here's what you do when you finish it, you're done. That's not an attitude of diving into whatever is of interest. The other thing that I think is important that we teach that happens is if we don't just give them some freedom, we are teaching our kids to be dependent on us. We don't give them the real tools of learning. We teach them productivity is the most important thing there is. And we also teach them to follow. You see, when you set aside time and not all the content, the kids are going to have to make some decisions. They are going to have to take leadership and ownership in their schooling. And that causes them to think. See, in America, we have a society of highly trained, poorly educated people. that are eventually losing freedoms like that we are losing today. But that's a whole nother subject. But I do believe that our society has highly trained kids. They can do a job, but can they think? Not necessarily. These three steps will help get you away from the not having an education. Step one, set aside a time for learning, reading. Step two, file quickly what you learn. We want to write about whatever we read. Read and write. So what did I do for this? I was going to bring it here. I bought each child a journal. I didn't care what size they could. We went out and let them pick it. The reading journal every day, they would read their book and they had to write one page about the book. Now, a lot of you have probably heard of narration. Narration is a retelling of what happened in the book. We want to go a step further and talk about why did this happen? What is your opinion? How did this happen? Make them start thinking, and you want them to write what they are thinking about the book. Now, this takes some transition time, and you may need to model this. You may need to use some writing prompts as well. But I think it's really important that they write. Now, first question, well, could they just type it on the computer? I don't think so. Let me share some studies for you. There are some studies, handwriting versus typing. Princeton and UCLA tested 300 students. The ones that took Longhorn, I'm in Texas, Texas Longhorns. The ones who took longhand notes were better able to answer the questions. Why? Because when you are writing, you cannot think, you can't write every word. You have to think in your head, you have to rephrase what the lecture, what the teacher is saying, and then just write phrases to help you remember. You are thinking a lot more when you are handwriting. When you're typing, you're just not even paying attention a lot of times. You're just typing everything they say. Sometimes it's like dictation. All right. That's study number one. Study number two is Mueller and Oppenheimer. They came away with 4 ideas. One is handwriting builds better conceptual understanding. When you are handwriting, you have a better concept of whatever is being spoken about. Another thing is the brain works harder when you are writing. I just said you've got to hear it, you have to think it, you have to then write down a summary, a quick little synopsis. Um, Number 3, handwriting is better for short-term memory and long-term memory. Who would have guessed? And then number 4, you have less distractions because you are more focused. You are better focused on what is being said when you're actually handwriting. So those are actual research studies that have shown that handwriting is good. So what do we want to do? We want to read every day. Then we want to write about it, think about it, write it down. One page. This is not a writing grade. This is actually to find out what your kids are thinking. I did check my kids on their journal, but I didn't grade it. I wanted to know, are they actually thinking, or are they just retelling the story? So then the last step, number 3, in teaching our kids how to think is to apply quickly what they learn. And this is where we share it. Actually, there's a better word, and I sort of goofed. Sharing out loud, but I don't know why I wrote that word down. I've taught this so many times. The last thing, and I think easiest in your home, is to discuss it. But when we apply quickly what we learn, we share what we are learning. And most of the time, that's in a discussion. When I was, this usually happens when we are sharing it, you could share it with your spouse. Let's say you are doing this. You're reading, you're writing, and you are discussing. How do we discuss it? We can share it with our spouse. We can share it with a friend. If you just share something with your friend, more likely it's going to be some sort of discussion. Your kids could share it with you, share it with their parent. We have got to share it and discuss it. Another thing you can do is to teach it. That would really cement it in their heads. But let's go back to this idea of discuss, because this is my 3-step teach your kids how to think process. We read, we write, and we discuss. Read, write, discuss. Those are the concepts that will really help your kids ingrain their thinking skills. So I think it's important that you, as a mom or dad, are modeling this. You are mentoring this for them. So, what do we need to do? This is not tell your kids what to do. I should have said. Where does it start? It starts with mom. Believe it or not, it starts with mom. And so that is important. You need to go through this process yourself. And you need to find a book that you're going to read and write about every single day. Discuss it once a week. Start with mom. Now you may be going, oh, I'm scared. Well, think about what your kids are feeling when you tell them what to do. I think it's important that you model this and you mentor this. If you're not modeling and mentoring them through it, they're not going to really get it. So here's what I recommend to you. I would pick a book that you are interested in. It can be a children's classic, some classic book. Maybe Little House on the Prairie, Anne of Green Gables, The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, whatever. But you need to, excuse me, I don't know why I keep yawning. Read every day. Write one page every day, and once a week, you need to share that, discuss it with someone else. I would say read that, finish that book, do another one, finish a book. You've done 2 kid classics. Guess what? It's time to do an adult classic. When I bought the girls the Iliad, I thought, oh my goodness, it's like this thick. Am I really going to read that, Carrie? But I thought, if I expect my children who are teenagers to be able to read this and understand it, surely I should be able to read it and understand it. So I think it's really important that you go through the process yourself. As you go through this process, you will be prepared to be able to walk and journey with your kids through this same process. I would encourage you to do at least 4 books on your own. 2 can be children, 2 adults, and then we want to start teaching it to our kids. The easiest way to start this, because you're going to say, well, I got kids in 6th grade and 10th grade and 3rd grade. Okay, start reading out loud. Read aloud a book. And everyone has their own reading journal. Now, the younger kids, I would say this is really better, especially the writing about is really better for older kids. So that's why we're saying teens. Your teens should be able to do this. You need to read aloud every day. And then everyone goes and writes 1 page. That's it, 1. And then once a week, you discuss it. Now, I want to tell you, it's so embarrassing. Can you believe I'm like, really, Carrie? Read, write, and discuss. We want to be sure that our kids are starting to think about whatever it is that they are reading. We want to give them an opportunity. And if everyone's reading the same book, then it's really easy to have a discussion about the book. And you're like, my kids are older. I don't read out loud to them. Guess what? My children, as long as they were here, before they went off on their own to college, we read out loud all the way through high school. Don't quit reading out loud to them when they can read on their own. There are so many fantastic books. My husband read Little Britches at nighttime, and there's like 6 or 8 books. My kids were laughing and giggling in the van one day about grandpa and grumpy old crotchety grandpa, blah, blah, blah. I mean, they were having their own discussion. It wasn't a planned discussion, but they had become so involved as teenagers in this book that they were discussing it in their free time. That to me means reading out loud is a good thing to do. So this is my 3-step process, but let's take it a step further. Making decisions. I will tell you right now, as you write, your kids are going to be forced to make a decision. They have to think about what they're reading, and then they have to make a decision about it. What's their opinion about it? Did this person act in a biblical way? Is this the way that we should act? There's a lot of ideas that we can write about and then discuss as well. I will give you one big clue before I go to decision making. When you are discussing, discussion leader, that is you. You never answer your own question. If your kids cannot answer your question, then you need to ask another question. It's called the Socratic method. And you're like, oh no. Okay, and here's one more tip, give you 2 tips. You ask a question and then all of a sudden it's silent. What do you do? No one's saying anything. There is no discussion. You know why? Because you've been thinking about that question for 1, 2, 3 days a week, and it's the first time your kids have ever answered it. If you jump in 10 seconds and answer the question, what do kids learn? Guess what? When we have discussion, we don't have to answer the questions or think because mom answers the question for us. So here's what I would encourage you to do. You ask a question, zip your lip, in your head, count to 100. It will be awkward. Someone's going to talk because one of your kids can't handle the silence. But if no one answers in 100, then you ask another question, a probing question, trying to get to it. You never answer your own question. Now, you might discuss something later, but the whole point is you want your kids talking, not you. And every time you answer your question, you are raising a follower. I'll just be quiet. Mom will tell me what to do. I just follow mom. What do you want to do? Do you want your kids to grow up to be leaders, to lead in godliness, to lead and follow Jesus, to lead and lead their family? No, they may not be CEO or mayor of the city, but more than likely they will have children that they need to lead. And so when you are having this discussion, you need to count to 100 and you never answer your own question. Wise decisions. This really helps make some wise decisions, but I think it's important in life that you give your kids opportunities to fail. Not easy. I did not like to watch my kids fail. But this is an opportunity that you journey with your kids in decision making and in leadership skills. The more often they have decision making opportunities, the better they will become at making them. So like when they're 5 years old, do you want a peanut butter or cheese sandwich? That is a simple decision. But as they get older, should you go see that movie or not? Then let them make some decisions. We told them what movies they could watch up until about junior high, and then they had to start making their own decisions. So if you are a person of belief, I would encourage you to pray about it. I would ask God, what do you want me to do? He is a faithful God, and we need to be able to follow him. And then I also think it's important when you are making, especially a big decision, you share your decision-making process. Do you make a list? Do you do pros and cons? Do you talk to people? Do you get wise counsel? There you go. There is a really good thing to do. Hunter is really good at that. He has some pretty big decisions to make about career and job and starting his own business. And he pretty much will ask the people around him. I know he asked my dad. His grandpa's over 90 years old. And pretty much anytime he has a decision, he asks my dad. Because he's like, the man's lived 92 years, so surely he may have an opinion, but they have a really good relationship. And Hunter trusts him. And he knows that my dad wants the best for him. So, encourage your kids to ask for good counsel. One thing that Steve would do is when young people wanted to know about starting a business, he'd say, take me out to lunch, ask me all your questions. And so they would buy him lunch and then ask whatever questions they needed to. And that was a way. Encourage your kids to go ask people that know better, that have wisdom in that area. Let's face it, if you wanted me to answer questions about whether you should go in engineering and which field, I am the wrong person to ask. We can go find you some people. Should you go into law school or med school? Again, not me. God's given me some expertise, but not in any of those areas. So let your kids go and talk to other people. You don't have the answers to every question. Only God has those answers. So, all right. So if you want to encourage your kids to think well, I would use this read, write, discuss plan. But the biggest thing that most moms have a hard time with is it starts right here with mom. Mom, you have got to go through the process, and you need to do it with an adult book. You will have sympathy and empathy for your children when they struggle with it. And you'll understand what they're going through. And then through this process, it can help them make some good decisions as they're adding on thinking skills. But we also want to give them opportunities from little kids on up. Now, I wanted to tell you that I do have a course. It's a free 3-part video course. I was going to write it down. I should have written this earlier. It's very easy to get to, but you'll get it by email every day for 3 days. And it is how to simplify your homeschool. And I think this can simplify because you can use it in any subject area. I also think reading aloud and everyone reading it together can simplify. So we have some real life ways to do that. But if you would like to get this course, you can go to howtohomeschoolmychild.com/video, and you will get my 3-part video course, How to Simplify Your Homeschool. Each video is less than 5 minutes. Quick and easy, and every video you get a 1-page PDF with a little activity for you to actually put that video into practice. So I just appreciate your time and spending time with you today. And if you have any questions, there should be my contact information wherever Michelle puts this video. I have to apologize. I'm going to do it again. I have to apologize for yawning in the middle of this video. I am so sorry, but I will tell you this. If you want to know me, you know that I am real. And if I yawn in the middle of the video, it's not that. It's like I was yawning at 8 this morning. I don't know what my problem was, but I knew I needed to get this done. Michelle had asked me to do this a day or two ago, and I needed to get it finished so she could get hold of it. So all I can say is I'm sorry. I am real. You're going to get the honest Carrie Beck when you are around me. Thanks so much for spending time with me. I am Carrie Beck with howtohomeschoolmychild.com and Raising Leaders, Not Followers. Y'all have a great day.